Let me get this right. You're painting this, risking the fact that you can get mortared while you're painting it.
Oh, I'll get into that.
I was gonna say you're doing graffiti.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And
You're
it's
doing
like,
graffiti, and you're thinking like, "Oh, the cop's gonna come."
no, this is
Not
a
like,
bomb, bro.
These guys are gonna bomb me, right? When I was doing that first mural, I wanted to outline the flames. I was like, "Man, this little brush." I'm just like, dab. Like I'm gonna be here forever.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting one of those cheap hog hair brushes, and I cut the hairs off of it. I got that painter's blue tape.
Oh yeah.
And I broke a stick, and then I made it. And then I kept trimming it and trimming it and trimming it.
Get a bigger range.
Yeah, I could get a bigger range.
Right.
Unknowingly, I was pinstriping.
Crazy.
And I didn't even know that.
That's like you're making your own machine.
Yeah, it was, literally.
in the pinta, you know?
Exactly, yeah. This time I look to my left, and we're getting mortared. Boom, boom. I just look, and I'm like, oh, shit.
Because you have your headphones on.
Yeah, I have
right?
my headphones on,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're zoned out.
Right.
You're like, oh, Jesse James from Monster Garage.
Oh.
Do you know who he is? I was like, yeah. They're like, yeah, he's a custom bike builder from California. I was like, I'm from California. I was like, what do you mean? They're like, yeah, he's gonna come to Iraq and he's gonna film an episode of Monster Garage and he's gonna build a Hummer just like the one you're painting. I'm gonna go invest and bet on myself. Like this is cool. Like you did it, right?
Yep.
And it's a risk. But I want everybody to know the best investment you could ever make in your life is to invest in yourself, to bet on yourself. You have full control. You can't control what goes on in the world. If you have a goal, if you have a dream, just go for it.
Julio, welcome to the shop.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, man. Tell everybody what you do because you are a educator.
Yeah.
You are a artist.
Yeah.
You are a spiritual person. You've been in the community of Sanger, been involved in a lot of different things for as long as I can remember. Tell everybody what you do.
My name's Julio Hernandez. I'm a little bit of everything. It's hard to box me into one label. Proud titles that I have is, a father. I have 3 daughters that I'm very proud of. And, I'm a husband. I've been married for 20 plus years. I'm a veteran. And I started off just doing art like everyone else, just doing, doodling and drawing as a kid.
Yeah.
I always thought I could draw, but I can't draw as good as him, right? Right? Like I'm okay, but he's better. But now I guess I would say I'm a full service custom artist,
Yeah.
So I do pinstriping, custom painting, airbrushing, candies, flakes, pearls, patterns, gold leaf, silver leaf, all the leafing, lettering. Yeah. So and then I'm a business owner. Just done a lot of stuff, and recently I've been blessed with the honor of becoming a Chicano community leader.
Oh wow!
And just someone to elevate the culture. Something that I always thought of, and I was always like, man, back in the day they had, Cesar Chavez and
the movements.
They had all these different dudes, where African Americans had Martin Luther King and where's our people at? Where's our leaders at now? Where
our
like who's from our generation, like who's making them? And I'm looking. Time would pass and opportunities would come up, and I would try to help people out and do things for biker culture to make things positive and influential for the communities and for industries. And I would see people would do it out of greed. People would do it
for the wrong reasons,
maliciously, or even some people that you would think like, oh man, this guy's got it going, And once you get to know him, you're like, this fool's ignorant. Like he doesn't even know what the heck he's doing. And so you start seeing things started just, I guess, coming easily, naturally. And but I never felt that I could do it. But recently, I guess within the last maybe the last year or so, I've just been pushing a little more. More doors started opening. And recently, I got approached by a gal that she runs ACTA, which is Alliance for Community and Traditional Arts.
Is that in Fresno?
It's out of Fresno,
Yeah.
but it's actually ran by the state of California.
Okay.
And what it is they're basically funding, they're the middleman funding and finding artists and communities and cultures, and they're trying to empower them. They're trying to increase them. They're trying to keep them alive. And they've asked me to basically take that role and run grants.
Wow.
And run the projects and be project director and leader and, organize. Basically, they're saying, we're going to give you all this money. You be the Chicano leader.
Wow.
And you just tell us where you want it. Come up with the ideas, come up with the projects, come up with the, community events. And if it's good enough, we'll make it happen. So that's kind of
awesome.
what I'm involved in right now. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but yeah, I've done a lot of different things.
How long have you been pinstriping?
You know what? Pinstriping, if I had to say when I started, probably like 2004, 2003 maybe.
Okay.
I was kind of already pinstriping without even knowing I was pinstriping.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was just, people would ask me, hey, can you do this sign for my business? I was like, okay.
And were you
Cool.
doing like the classic painting?
Yeah, I would do like, a piece of wood and
Like the old milk signs?
yeah, and just a big old 4x8 sheet of wood, and I was like, oh, let's put some flames on it. Let's outline the flames.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know. That's pinstriping. I didn't know that,
Wow.
I would just always doodle and draw like pinstripes. And, but I didn't realize I was pinstriping. And I guess my biggest, proudest pinstriping moment when in 2005 I went to Iraq, and while I was in Iraq, just like any tattoo, artistic creative, you would take your sketchbook, so I took my sketchbook, I took my color pencils, I took my watercolors, and I would just doodle and draw. In my mind, it was just like, I just thought, well, same thing as when I was a kid, this will kill time.
Yeah.
This will help me take my mind off the war. This will help me, kind of take my mind off thinking about home and family, and my wife. And I was like, I could just like get in my own little world and just kind of zone out, right?
Yeah.
And so I would do that. In doing that and doing drawings for some of the other troops, there happened to be an art contest. I ended up competing in that art contest. And one of the guys was like, hey, Sergeant Major's having a art contest in the battalion. You should enter. And we were like maybe 30 miles north of Baghdad. And it's a big old Iraqi air base. It was called Camp Anaconda. It was like 12 square miles. So it was like the size of Sanger, but Sanger fenced off.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm not going to win, bro. Always,
Sure, the self-doubt.
that self-doubt. And it was like, I'm not going to win, bro. There's like 30,000 soldiers on this base.
A lot of people
like,
entered.
There's not. And he's like, hey, man, this is just in the battalion. It's not in the whole base.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's only 1,500 soldiers in the battalion. At that time I was like 22, 23. And I was like, oh, that's 1,500. He goes, look, not everybody's going to enter because not everybody's artistic.
Right.
He goes, look, I'm the Command Sergeant Major's driver. I'm his personal chauffeur. I can't guarantee you're going to win, but I take this dude to all his meetings. I drive him to all his lunches, breakfast, lunch, and dinners. I drive him around base. If he needs something from the PX, whatever, I take him. I'm around this dude all the time. He trusts me. So if you submit something and he asks my opinion, which he probably will, I'll kind of
You got that.
put yours on the top of the stack and say, well, Julio's is pretty cool. He goes, but if you don't enter, then there's really nothing I could do for you.
Right.
I was like, all right.
Give it a shot.
So I didn't really know what it was. So I did some drawings. At that time, I was a cook in the Army, but they weren't letting us cook. It was all about, they had subcontracted everything to like third world nationals. So like all guys from like Yemen, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, they were doing all the cooking. And so I was in the chow hall. One day I go and they're like, what are you doing here? What do you mean? Came to work, just like I do every day.
Yeah.
And they said, oh no, that soldier's here to cover for you. Sergeant Major's waiting for you down at battalion headquarters. I'm like, oh crap.
Oh no.
And well, nobody told me nothing.
Right.
So I go down there and I meet Sir Major, and big old dude, you know, and he's got all his stars and his bars, all his rank.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, so you're the famous artist?" I said, "Yes, Sir Major." He said, "Well, I like your drawings, and I picked yours as the winners."
What was it?
It was a military truck, so like a Peterbilt big rig.
Oh yeah.
All tacticaled out.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing an American flag and an Iraqi flag. And then I put chains and stuff on it. I just did the drawing on paper, right? Just like a sketch, and I colored it in, color pencils, whatever I had. I put some flames on it.
Look at that. Yeah.
Right? So I was always like, hey, I always like how flames were one color, but they were outlined in a different color.
Yeah.
I was like, all right. So I'm doing this painting, and I would always be like, man, like, I'm going to be here forever doing this mural.
Yeah.
Because I would just like paint it, and I would just go like dab, 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 dab. And I'd move like quarter inch.
Right, a little bit.
Little by little.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I had a brush that I could pull like longer lines. One of the things that happened while I was, I got chosen as the winner, he told me, well, yours is the winner, and you got a 4-day pass to Qatar. That's the price. I was like, cool.
Yeah.
So he goes, but I want you to put this on a mural for me. I want you to put this on a wall. Can you do that? I was like, yes, Sir Major.
So
it was like,
what scale was it? How big?
It was probably like, so those were maybe like 8 feet tall, 7 feet tall, maybe 6 to 8 feet wide.
Yeah.
And maybe like a foot thick.
Wow.
And those were blast walls. So that base, you know, we were getting mortared every day.
Oh wow.
Like all day. Some days it's, you know, it's crazy to think now, to look back, but it was just like, it just became normal.
Yeah.
Like you're just getting bombed.
Just like another day.
And it was just like, whatever. Like,
Wow.
One of the things he told me was like, okay, can you put this on a wall for me? And I was like, yeah, I can put it on a wall. He goes, well, how long do you think it's going to take you? And I go, well, I don't know, 3 months. He's like, 3 months? Well, why so long? I go, well, you know, I work 10 to 12 hours days at the chow hall. I work 6 to 7 days a week. So I'll come on my time off,
Yeah.
and I'll come into my days off. And he's like, young man, I don't think you understand what's happening right now. What are you talking about? He goes, you're not going back to the chow hall. So you're going to be my personal artist.
Wow.
All you're going to do is paint murals for me. I was like, oh,
Dang.
all right. I was like, cool.
That's awesome.
And he's like, I already sent another soldier for you. They're going to take your spot, and they're going to relieve you until you're done with all the murals. And I was
Wow.
like, oh, wow, this is cool.
So he had different assignments or different murals, I'm assuming, for you to do?
Yeah,
and-
so like those blast walls, see, like in World War II,
No.
this is kind of how it references to tattooing. So in World War II, they would get the most creative, artistic troops, and then they would paint on the airplanes, right? They put like Memphis Belle. And then back then, when they would get their food, they'd get their rations, they'd get like a little pack of cigarettes, or they'd get like a little package.
Yeah.
Well, back then they'd have like some sexy chick painted on there. So those guys would get that. They'd be like, oh, I'm going to do this chick on the airplane, but bigger. And that's where the pinup stuff came up.
Yeah.
So like everybody's all the pinup, traditional,
The 50s,
you know, American
yeah.
traditional. It all came from World War
Yeah.
II stuff. But in this war, they wouldn't let us do the planes. They wouldn't let us paint the vehicles.
Okay.
But they had these big walls that would protect us. So like in front of your studio, there'd be maybe like 5 feet, 4 feet in front of your windows would be a wall like that.
Sure.
So if you were to get mortared, it wouldn't. The mortar and the shrapnel wouldn't blow out your windows. You know, if
Interesting.
you could hide, you know, use it as a shield.
Yeah.
And but
So let me get this right. You're painting this, risking the fact that you can get mortared while you're painting it.
oh, I'll get into that.
I was gonna say you're doing graffiti.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And
You're
it's
doing
like-
graffiti, and you're thinking like, "Oh, the cop's gonna come."
No, this is
not
a
like
bomb, bro.
these guys are gonna bomb me, right?
Oh my God,
So
dude.
I end up, you know, going, and he's like, "Well," he goes, "You're not gonna go back.
Yeah.
This is all you're gonna do." And he goes, "Well, have you ever done this before?" I said, "No, Sir Major." He's like, "Well, why'd you tell me yes?" Like, bro, I hadn't even painted like a wall
Right.
in my house.
Right.
Not even in my own room for my parents. You know, I didn't know like the difference between lacquer and
Yeah.
water-based and paint thinner. Like I didn't know none of that.
Right.
Eggshell and high gloss.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know none of that. I was just like, yep.
Yeah.
You're the sergeant major. You're telling me to do something. I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
I go, but sergeant major, there's one problem. I don't have any paints. I don't have any brushes. I don't have anything. And he's like, oh, you don't worry about that. You get with Sergeant Holtz here. He'll take you down to the supply warehouse. You can get whatever you want. You tell him sergeant major sent you. I was like,
wow.
All right. I got like literally 100% freedom.
Wow.
Military freedom. Because over there, it's like everybody has a job to do. Everybody has a task to do. Everybody has to be at somewhere at a certain time. If you're on mission, like you're on mission. If you're going out knocking down doors, like you're out knocking down doors. If you're, hauling trucks, you're hauling loads, beans or bullets, whatever it may be, like you got to be there at a certain time. You got to leave at a certain time. Like everything's coordinated. Everything's one big, like everybody's a part of a big machine, and it's all moving for the war. Mm-hmm. And in that whole machine, they're like, you just get to float around.
Yeah.
And do the art.
And as
long as you get it done, like we'll leave you alone. And it was cool.
How many other artists? You were the only artist.
Yeah, well, they call it T-wall art.
Okay.
Now, they made a name for it.
Okay.
But there was a lot of walls there that were already kind of painted beforehand before I got there. Mm-hmm. I go and I do this. I leave and I go to the supply warehouse, and imagine going and buying your colors.
Yeah.
And bro, like, I didn't know what it was. So to me, I'm just like, they're big old gallon cans of paint.
Yeah.
And I'm like, white, yep. Black, definitely. Blue, put in the cart.
Did you have a knowledge of colors? Like color theory, color concept?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Like, I knew what colors I needed. Okay. Some of these cans were written in Arabic.
Oh, yep.
And it's like, imagine. Oh, well, that looks like red to me, so put it in the cart. It's not like going to Allard's or to the paint store.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And you could just buy all your art supplies.
Yeah.
It was nothing. There was nothing out there. I had to email and call. The next time I was able to call on the phone and use my calling card, I was like, hey mom, hey wife, hey whomever, can you send me like art supplies? And they're like, well, where do we buy that at? Yeah. I don't know. Just anywhere. Just send me whatever you can find. And so I just had to kind of scrounge, whatever I could find at the PX. But a lot of it was just cheap China hog hair stuff, right. whatever I found here or there at the PX, or I didn't have nothing. When I was doing that first mural, I wanted to outline the flames. I was like, man, this little brush, I'm just like, dab. Like, I'm gonna be here forever. Yeah. So I ended up getting one of those cheap hog hair brushes, and I cut the hairs off of it. And then I got that painter's blue tape. Oh, yeah. And I broke a stick, and then I made it. And then I kind of like bit it. I was like, oh, it's like spreading out. No, I want it thinner. And then I kept trimming it and trimming it and trimming it. Yeah. And I was like, hey, I can go like 4 inches. Oh, cool. Like, oh, heck, hey.
Get a bigger range.
Yeah, I could get a bigger range. Right. Unknowingly, I was pinstriping.
Crazy.
And I didn't even know that.
That's like you're making your own machine.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, literally
in the pinta.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's cool.
And
I was going to ask you about how'd you get because pinstripe brushes, and I want to get into.
And I didn't even know what a pinstriping brush was. I had never seen one. Exactly. But I just knew like flames always look cool when they're a different contrasting color. Yeah. And you were asking about like, did you know about color theory? Yeah. I thought I did. Yeah. Till I'm up on doing this wall, and I'm just like, okay, I know how to do this. I know how to make purple. I know how to make gray. Yeah. How do I make maroon? And I thought, well, I'm going to need cups to mix the paint in. So I went down to the chow hall. I got a bunch of styrofoam coffee cups and start mixing them. Well, I didn't know that this one's a chemical-based paint. Oh. And it's just like eating through the cup, and it's just like melting the bottom. And I'm like, oh, dang. Like, I finally got the color I wanted to make, and it just... So, bro, like that first week,
cans or something. Or?
That first week, I was just making mud. Yeah, I was just making mud. I figured out I could use paper cups. But that first week, 2 weeks, it was just a learning curve. You had talked about like getting bombed, right? Yeah. So that first mural, I'm painting it. I think I was already in it like 3-4 weeks. I would be up on the ladder just painting. This was 05. So, you know, CDs were still in, you know.
Yeah.
You know, MP3s and all that,
The
you
Walkman.
know, Pandora and Spotify and all these music streams. None of that existed.
Right.
Right.
Not
YouTube
even,
Music. None of that
even,
existed.
Not even Napster, huh?
No, nothing. Maybe Napster,
Maybe.
but it was like go down to the PX, get your CDs.
Yeah.
I took a big old binder of,
That's
you know,
funny.
back in the day, you had your big old binder of CDs, right?
Yeah.
So I remember I had like this little brown camouflage CD player that I put in my cargo pocket.
Did it have the anti-skip?
Yeah, and then I'd put my little headphones on and I'd be rocking out, right? And I'd be painting up on the ladder. And then this particular mural was in front of a chow hall. It was like a small cafeteria, like an Air Force cafeteria.
Yeah.
And it would feed maybe about 300-400 for lunch, 300-400 for dinner. Painting and painting. And I just like, got like that spidey sense, you know, like something ain't right.
Weird feeling.
I feel like a tap on my shoulder, you know. I'm like, again, I look to my right, nothing. And, you know, now I know what it was. It was Jesus himself saying, hey, Julio, turn around. Hey, Julio, turn around.
Yeah.
And this time I look to my left and we're getting mortared. Boom, boom, boom. I just look and I'm like, oh shit.
Because you have your headphones on.
Yeah, I have my headphones on, you know, and you know, you're zoned out.
Right.
You know, just like you were 5 years old again. You got your
Yeah,
tongue
yeah,
sticking
yeah.
out. You're like, you know, you're in it. And we're getting mortared. Boom, boom, boom. I look and there's shrapnel just freaking flying everywhere, rocks flying everywhere. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I turn around. There's people running everywhere. So it was the walls, and then it was these big concrete, almost like sewer pipes, right?
Yeah.
But they were square, and they were like little above ground bunkers.
Yeah.
And I would see people walk by them every day. That day I turned around, bro, they were full of people in there.
Damn.
And they're all going, hey, they're all waving me down like, come on. And they were maybe from the wall, like maybe 40, 50 feet. Jump off the ladder, drop the paint, drop the brushes, and I'm just booking it, right?
So were they were just moving in on you guys? Is that because...
No, so they would, remember, like it's 12 square miles.
Yeah.
Okay, it was all fenced off, and these guys would have like tubes, mortar tubes, and they shoot like, you know, they drop a missile in there, and they would shoot over, and they didn't really have aim. They were just launching them. They're just launching them, hoping that they hit somebody.
Sure.
And you know, for months it's just like missed. You know, and this one time, it was like right there.
And they just kept letting it fly at that area too?
Yeah, they would just whatever they could get away with, you know. And then all my training kicks in, and I'm like, oh, my rifle. So I run back, grab my, you know, I used to keep my AR right there on the side of the wall.
Yeah.
And run back and go grab it. What's a rifle gonna do, bro?
Yeah.
It's not gonna do nothing. But it was just all that soldier instinct, that warrior instinct. You know, go grab your weapon, go grab your sword, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I ran back and I went to go get it. I run back and I jump in there with them, and my heart's just like pounding, bro, going 100 miles an hour.
What a rush.
And I'm just like, what the fuck, man? How come none of you guys went to go get me?
Yeah.
And they're like, we've been calling you, but you just kept painting and painting and painting.
He's on a suicide mission over there. He's over there.
I was like, man. We just wait, chilling, you know, and then you're watching like the Apache helicopters fly in, and they're just like do shooting these guys, and you're like, you can't see it, but you see them fly up, go over, shoot in a direction, and you're just like, yeah,
you know it's going down.
You got they're getting them.
It's going down.
And it was just like just another day, so you just wait, you know, they sound the all clear like a big siren, and then you just kind of dust yourself off. And I remember going back and just like
back to normal,
picking up my paints, picking up my brushes. You know, okay, where did I leave off at?
I could imagine if it took forever to get that color, and you're just like, whoa.
Yeah, and it was just like, all right, get back and pick up the ladder, you know, and it's like, get back to work.
It's insane.
And but I'll tell you what, from that moment on, everything was like this.
Up. Yeah.
It was like, I'm always gonna be trucha, like, you know, always gonna be alert, just in case.
Just in case.
But I didn't even know I was pinstriping, bro. Wow. And I was pinstriping there. The reason I bring that up, and I'm so proud of that moment, because those murals are such a pivotal moment in my life, in my military career, in my business career, in my family history now.
Yeah.
They played such a huge, tremendous role in my artistic career. You know, that so much that I didn't even know. I didn't know then how much of an impact it would have on my life for years to come.
Yeah.
How much of an impact it's still having on my life now.
That was your apprenticeship, you know?
Yeah.
That was your start. You didn't even know that was your start.
Yeah, I remember years ago, you know, when the whole hashtag Instagram stuff would come out, and I'd put like world famous, world traveled artist, and some of these older, you know, painters or pinstripers get pissed.
Yeah.
Who does this kid think he is? World famous. What is he talking about?
Yeah.
You know, they had no clue, bro. They had no clue of what I had done, where I had been.
Right.
You know, but I ended up doing that mural. When I finished that one, I ended up doing 5 murals while I was there.
Wow.
So for like 3 or 4 months. While I
5
was,
murals in that 3 or 4 months.
For about 3 or 4 months out of the 11 months that I was in Iraq, all I did was art. Get up when I wanted to, work as long as I wanted to. You know, I have always had a strong work ethic. So I'd get up. I want to get up like at the butt crack of dawn, but I would get up. I put in, you know, 12 hours just because it was like, I like doing this.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I would just stop and just be like, I can't believe I'm getting paid to paint in the middle of the war in Iraq.
You got guys that are infantry, artillery,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
just like pinstriper.
Yeah, I'm there.
Which is, again, it's not even the downplay it or nothing. I'm just saying that everybody had the position and a job, and
you know,
to have this as that was an option is pretty
right.
insane,
You know, and so like I did that first one for him. I finished that one. I got a 4-day pass to Qatar. It was cool because when I went to Qatar, we're not allowed to drink while we're overseas. You're not supposed to, right?
Right.
And they give you 2 tickets. Like, here you go to the bar, have 2 beers. Give you 2 Coronas. And I go get those Coronas. Man, I hadn't had a beer in like 8 months.
Yeah.
I was like, these things taste like nasty, right?
Sand.
Whatever. I gave my other ticket away. I was like, never mind.
That's funny.
You know, and other guys were like, give me all your tickets, bro. I'll take all your tickets. I'll buy your tickets.
Yeah.
But,
I can't imagine how it looked to others, man, to be like, what is he doing over there? He's painting?
Yeah. When I went to Qatar, we got to go to MotoGP. So that was pretty cool.
That's
to
cool.
see those races. Fast forward, I come back, right? And he tells me, well, I liked yours. I like what you did, but now I want you to do one in front of my offices.
Oh, wow.
Is it going to look as good as that one? And I told him, no, I'm sorry, it's not. He's like, it's not? I go, because it's going to be better.
Yeah.
He's like, really? I go, yeah, because now I know how to mix the colors. I know what I'm doing wrong. You know, I got a better understanding of what I'm doing and what I'm working with and the tools that I'm working with.
Yeah.
So I said, it's going to be better than that. He's like, oh, okay. So I end up doing a second one for him. And then he leaves. That particular battalion leaves. I end up going back to work for, I think, like a month. Maybe less than a month, a couple weeks. One day they're like, hey, what are you doing here? Again, right? Well, came to work, bro. And they're like, no, Sergeant Major's waiting for you. Like, no, Sergeant Major left already. They're like, no, the new Sergeant Major.
Oh.
She's a female. She wants you to do murals for her. And I was like, oh. I had done some for my unit.
Yeah.
I had done some signs for people, hand-lettered signs.
Right.
So I go and I meet her, and she's like, hey, I want you to do, you know, some mural. I saw what you did for the previous Sergeant Major, the previous time. We want you to do one for us.
Wow.
But I was like, cool. Yeah, I'll do it. She goes, well, I go, but I'm leaving. We're leaving in like 60 days.
Whoa.
She goes, well, you think you could knock it out? I was like, yeah, I'll knock it out. I'm like 2 weeks into this mural, right? And I'm getting detailed, and I'm putting all kinds of stuff, so many colors.
Yeah.
I'm literally doing it from like night to day and all kinds of stuff. I remember I was doing a Hummer with a big blown motor, big old Hemi on it, and big old fat knobby tires.
Yeah.
Just this freaking hot
Almost
rod
like that,
Hummer, right?
That Rat Fink style.
Yeah, that Rat Fink style.
Yeah, that's cool.
And there's a guy in the turret just pointing at you, and you're looking down the barrel. And guys would walk by and they were like, oh, bro, when Jesse sees that, he's going to love it. And when Jesse sees that, he's going to love it. And I was like, they're like, oh, Jesse James from Monster Garage.
Oh.
Do you know who he is? I was like, yeah. They're like, yeah, he's a custom bike builder from California. I was like, I'm from California. I was like, what do you mean? They're like, yeah, he's going to come to Iraq, and he's going to film an episode of Monster Garage.
Oh, wow.
And he's going to build a Hummer just like the one you're painting. And I was like, no way. They're like, yeah, he's coming. And I was like, what the hell?
That's wild.
So I go and I talk to Sergeant Major. I'm like, hey, the guys were saying this is going to happen. Is this true? She goes, oh, yeah, I just got off the phone with him. Yeah, he's going to be here. He's going to be here in December. And I was like, what?
Dang.
We were leaving in November. I left before he got there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sure enough, like, you know, I think in February or March of the next year of 06,
Yeah.
we're sitting there watching. It's called Iraq Confidential.
Okay.
And yeah, he went to Iraq and he built a Hummer that does wheelies.
Wow.
And he took a motor. He had a blown motor shipped over there.
Dang.
And he had Pete Hot Dog Finland do all the flames and all the pinstriping. My family was like, is yours murals going to come out? Is your art going to come out? I don't know. I wasn't there.
Right.
So we're watching this show. Sure enough, Jesse's walking by and he's like, hey, look at that. That looks pretty cool. And the camera just goes, choop.
There it is.
And boom, there's my murals.
Nice.
I was like, yeah.
That's awesome.
You know? So for my birthday's December 29th, between Christmas and New Year's, my wife had got me a pinstripe kit, just a couple brushes, a couple cans of one shot. So I would just play with it. You know, didn't really take it serious, but just kind of just, you know, pinstriping on whatever. It was natural to me. It came easy. I worked a couple different jobs. You know, I started having kids. So it's like, okay, time to get that big boy job.
So you really stopped.
Yeah.
All art. You didn't even.
Yeah. I mean, I would still do it on the side.
Sure.
You know, I would do it for friends and family.
Yeah.
You know, back then was the whole bag truck scene, and I was doing some of that. Like I was doing a lot of fabrication.
Yeah.
I went to City College, took all the welding classes. You know, because I wanted to build hot rods. I wanted to build custom motorcycles. I wanted a friend of mine who builds hot rods told me, you know, you need to learn how to weld. If you need to at least go to the City College, something, but you need to learn how to weld. Yeah. Once I started having my kids and I was married, and you know, I went to work at California Dairies in Fresno. Place ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Those factory jobs, man. They don't turn off.
No.
Crazy.
It paid well. All the overtime I could ask for, you know, benefits, paid vacation. It was all there. It was cool because it allowed me. I got that job during the recession, and because that place never shut down, like I never felt it. They worked you like a dog.
Yeah,
worked you like a dog, man. I mean, you get dirty. I mean, you were there all day, all night. You'd be there with, you know, busting day after day after. I remember one time I worked like 27 days straight, no days off, tons of overtime. Fat check, but I was burnt, man. I think I was there about 3 years. And one day, I'm on my break. A friend of mine sends me a picture on Facebook. And he's like, hey, bro, does this look familiar? And I was like, that's the first mural that I painted. Like the picture that I showed you. Yeah. Now the background was like green trees. This ain't Iraq. There's no grass in Iraq. There's no forest in Iraq. Yeah. Like, where is this at? And I'm like, hey, bro, where'd you take this picture at? He's like, I was doing some training in Virginia. I had some time to kill, so I drove around base. And I went to the U.S. Army Transportation Museum. I walked around the museum, and I found your mural. They have it.
What?
And I was like, what?
That's cool.
I go, for real? He's like, yeah. He's like, you need to call him. So I went on Google, and I found the museum at Fort Eustis.
Wow. And
I called them up, cold called them, and I was like, hey, my name's Julio Hernandez. I was a sergeant in the Army in Iraq. And a friend of mine sent me this picture. You know, do you guys have this mural there? And they're like, oh, yeah, we got it. Man, I'm just like, what?
Crazy.
And I was like, if you don't mind me asking, what is it doing there? They said, well, like in the late 2000s, president at the time authorized from every branch of the military and every museum from every branch of the military to send representatives back to Iraq and collect anything that was of historical significance to the war in Iraq.
Wow.
And somebody from that museum snapped a picture of my mural. And they were like, this would be perfect for the museum because it's got a truck on it. It's got the Iraqi flag.
And it explains what it is, you know, too. The fact that it's
all the details of the mural would be perfect for the museum. You know, it has everything on there. It's by that time it was already beat up. They emailed it back to one of the honchos. Somebody back in the States, some shot caller said, yeah, bring it. Wow. And so I'm listening to him. He's like, yeah, so they authorized us to bring it. So, and I'm like this.
Yeah. Trying to get all the details.
I'm just like, what? Crazy, are you kidding me? They said we got a crane and we put the mural on on a flatbed truck. We drove it down into Kuwait. We drove it for 2 days through Iraq, and then drove it into Kuwait for about another half day to a day. We put it on a Navy ship, and then we drove it onto drove the truck into a Navy ship, and then the Navy ship crossed the Atlantic Ocean and hit the East Coast. And they drove the truck here to the museum, and we got another crane here in the U.S., and we unloaded it. So now we have it. Boom. That was it, man.
Yeah, you know, they immortalized you.
That was it, bro.
You know, that's insane.
That was my aha moment. That was like, oh, wow.
So that's when you felt like...
Oh, that was it.
Yeah.
That was the game changer right there. Because right there, all that self-doubt went out the window.
Yeah.
All those years. That was rock solid proof that somebody out there was seeing something in me that I wasn't seeing in myself.
Yeah. What was your next move? So you had the Pinstripe kit from your wife around Christmas time, right, or your birthday.
Then after that, this was like now, that was 2008. So this was like 2010, maybe 2011 when I found out about that.
Okay.
So I'd still been pinstriping and fabricating and, you know, just spraying simple stuff.
When were you starting to brand yourself? When did you feel like you started to make an impact or make some sort of a appearance out on, let's say, the public or like the local scene? When do you feel like that started for you to showcase? Imagine these people were seeing your work overseas, but your community, maybe because obviously the self-doubt story you're talking about, was it around that same time when you're like, I'm going to start putting it out at the local car shows or at the local...
You know what? I was already kind of putting it out there because I was in the truck scene.
Sure.
You know, bag trucks and, you know,
car shows.
You know, I grew up going to car shows since I was a kid. I grew up at the drag races. My dad was a old school Mexicano, couldn't speak a lick of English, but man, he loved the smell of burnt rubber and loud pipes, and he just loved that. You know, a lot of Chicanos, Mexicanos back in the 60s and 70s, it was like you either went all into the lowriders, and there was a small group, you know, that went into the bikes. Yeah. And there was an even smaller group that got into like the hot rods. Yeah. And my dad loved the hot rods. He loved the muscle cars. He had bought himself a 66 Impala. Now he tells me what the car was, and I'm like, bro, Dad, you know how much that car is worth now? It was a 66 Impala 3-speed stick. It had the big block motor. It just had all the bells and whistles. Right. Now it's like a $150,000 car, right? He was like, yo no sabía manejar estándar. I didn't know how to drive stick. I don't know how to drive that. And then he was, you know, this was back in the early 70s, and he's like, we just kept getting pulled over. At that time, he was living in Del Rey. Oh, yeah. And so they'd come into Sanger. The little Impala full of Mexicans that don't speak any English. It was like, whoop, whoop. Yep. Pull them over.
At that time in Sanger,
it was like, pull them over. So he was like, I didn't like that. He traded it in for a 71 Firebird. Okay. And, you know, he hot rodded it all out, right? Yeah. And so that's the car that I grew up in, you know.
6.6?
Yeah, he put a 428 in there, posi rear end, you know,
those are nice.
A big old freaking scoop on it. And we would go out to Famoso Drag Strip and go to the drag races. And I grew up in that. You know, I remember on Jensen, you know, going right outside of Sanger, being like 4 or 5 years old and in the early 80s.
Opening it.
And it's like some guy in a Chevelle or whatever start revving it up on my dad. I'm like, Dad, dale, you know? And I'd be like, he's like, no. My mom would be like, no, you better not. As soon as I hear those words, ponte el cinturón, put your seatbelt on. It was like, yeah, it's on. Strap on. You know, at 4 or 5 years old, like, oh, bro, you don't even know. You're about to get your ass whooped, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah, you know, I thought, like every kid, my dad's got the fastest car in town. Right. But I grew up around that. I grew up going to all the swap meets. I grew up at the Remate. Yeah. I grew up going to my dad with the regular Pulga, you know, all the regular swap meets. But he also did all the auto swaps. You know, we'd go to classic car auto swap meets. We'd go up to, you know, Napa Valley. We'd drive 3-4 hours. Wow. You know, we'd go down to Visalia, Bakersfield. You know, we'd go all over the place. I don't know why he never really went over the grapevine. He never went down south, but at least Northern California, you know, Central and Northern California. So I grew up doing all that. When I was still doing the pinstriping, he was still going to the swap meets. I would set up a little table, you know, small little table like this. Yeah. And I would just, whatever I could find, like a little panel, a little dish, a plate, like go to the Dollar Tree and get like plates. And I just pinstripe them and I just put them out there. Because see, in my mind, that was an old art. Do people still really want that? Is that still sought after?
Yeah.
I had no clue. All these old hot rodders, all these old school OG lowriders were like, hey kid, you can do that? Who showed you? Nobody. They're like, you just did it. And I was like, yeah. He said, listen kid, I've owned a body shop for 30 years. I've told the guys, when the pinstriper comes to the shop, pay attention. If any one of you can learn how to do that, I'll pay you double what I pay everybody else. Dang. A friend of my dad's, he had a big Petroliana. So he collects like old gas pumps and old like gas station signs, and he would restore it. And he would be like, hey, would you come and pinstripe some of my stuff? So he was one of the first people that gave me my big break, because I would work swing shift or graveyard at the plant as a maintenance engineer. And then I'd go in the mornings and I would like go knock on body shop doors and just make cheap little business cards, and I would hand them out. But I would go with him like once a week or once a month. He would say like, all right, how much would you charge me to do like that sign, that old Schwinn? And he have like 4 or 5 things. So I would just sit there all day, the morning, and I would just knock it out. I would do that for local shops. People were like, can I bring you a car? Kind of start seeing the wheel move. Mm-hmm. This guy would be like, hey, can I bring my 67 GTO to your house? And I was like, yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
You know, can I bring my 48 Fleetline, gangstered out bomb to your house and have you leaf it and stripe it? I was like, sure. Damn. And I told my wife, I said, listen, I'm going to give this art thing a shot. I'm going to go all in. Do you have my back? She was like, yeah, I got you. One of the things that people don't realize, when you deploy to war, you got a lot of time. Yeah. You got a lot of time to just sit there and think. And we would joke like, oh, bro, what are you going to eat when you get back? Like, what do you really want to eat? Like, what are you just craving?
Did you say chuck wagon?
Yeah, chuck wagon, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to tear up chuck wagon. And you would, whatever it was, I was very goal oriented. Mm-hmm. And it was like, okay, what do I want to do when I get back? When you're there, you're making good money. The higher your rank, the more you're making. Some of these guys were blowing their money on stupid shit.
Yeah.
Like $15 CD, they're paying like $60. Yeah. But to me, it was like, no, I'm going to save it. And I did. I'd rather have everything I want when I get home, and I'll just chill here. I would also write down, like, what do I want to do? What are my goals? And I was like, I want to open up a shop. I want to open up a hot rod shop. I want to work on like custom motorcycles. I want to work on lowriders. I want to work on hot rods. And all that actually started becoming a possibility of becoming a reality. The gears were moving in the community. They were telling me, hey, you could do this. I started believing it in myself. People through the military were telling me, hey, you're so good. We actually brought your stuff back. And then I went all in. Yeah. And I told my wife, like, I'm going to keep doing both. I'm going to do my art and I'm going to work until I make the same amount of money doing my art as I do at work. I said, one of these days I'm going to quit and I'm going to do nothing but pinstriping and custom painting. And the people that didn't know that world, they were just like, man, stop playing around.
Yeah.
You know what, Julio, there's a call on line 3 in the butter room. Go take that call. Yeah. But in my head, I was like, you watch. You wait and see. I'm going to do it. All the bikers that work there, bro, you're going to do it. You're going to make it.
Did they start bringing you their stuff too?
Yeah. One of the first bikes that I ever did was a guy named Jesse Peña. He gave me my first, one of my first breaks on the bikes.
Okay.
Him, and there was another gentleman named Abraham. And Abraham had got a bike. He had just got it. He just started riding. Some of the other guys, I was like, hey, bro, let me do your bike. They're like, wow. And so they all like stood back and waited to see what his looked like. Same thing, same as before.
Yeah.
On the outside, I'm like, oh, yeah, bro, I got this. He dropped it off at my house. He left, and I was just like, what do I do? This is an all-black Harley.
It's not a flat surface.
Oh, it's one thing to just talk yourself up and hype yourself up,
right.
But when you got it there and they leave, man, I probably put paint on there and wiped it off like 10 times. And I was just like, just so critical of myself, right? Yeah. Because I knocked that one out for him. Then I did Jesse's, and I had never really seen a Vicla. I never really seen a Chicano-style Harley.
Apes.
Yeah. He had the apes. He had the loud fishtail pipes. He had all the accessories on it. And he's like, he started giving me the whole history about it. Me and my buddies, we're gonna get out of this club and we're gonna start another club. We're gonna call it La Raza. We want to do something different. So I even did the drawings and the designs for them. And now it's a massive
I was gonna say, how big is that chapter? Bro, I've heard of that. That's massive. All spread out through Cali.
They're massive.
Yeah, and they're out of state
huge.
too.
all the guys at work that had cars, that had classic cars, that would allow me to do some of their stuff, they knew, oh yeah, you're gonna make it. And people would tell me like, hey, aren't you scared? Didn't you say you just bought a house? Didn't you say you just had a baby? And now you're on don't you say just your second kid? Yeah.
Who were these people telling you this? Just other workers around you and things like that? Or?
Some were haters, some were naysayers, some were doubters. You know what it was a lot was just almost everybody has dreams. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's I guess you could say there's very, very few people who can literally say they don't. I would see people that had put in like 15, 20, 30 years working at plants. Lifers. Yeah. And I would ask them like, hey, what did you ever want to do? Man, I heard it all. Whatever it was, but it wasn't that. What they were doing, it wasn't that.
And I had my fair share of the packing house life,
Yeah.
But like you said, when I put my art on pause for a little bit of time, because you knew, again, you had a dream, you have this art background, and they're like, what are you doing in here? If you have this, right. I'm sure you had the positive guys that were telling you, hey, what are you doing in here? If you have, like, for instance, people would ask me, like, what do you do? Oh, I tattoo. What are you doing here? Well, I moved to a different area, no clients. I knew this wasn't it for me, but this was maybe a stepping stone, and it was seasonal. And so I had this.
Yep. You had to do what you had to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was. We had to provide. So in our sense, like, the pride could be, no, I'm just going to ride this out. And then you crash and burn versus you putting it on pause to give yourself a little more weight to be able to revisit that. So what I mean, like what you've created with that, you're now in the museum, right? And all the notoriety and the recognition you got from overseas and the people that actually seen your murals could have, again, come down to nothing if you have put that on pause and just be like, you know what? Opportune moment, opportune time. I'm still going to do this. You knew what it was going to take. You knew what you had to do. You stuck the plan. And then look, you were just like, now it's time.
I put in the work. I put in the time. I grinded and I sacrificed. It was tough, bro, because I got out of the military because of the fact that when I joined the military, But after 8 years and a tour in Iraq, I realized my mom signed up, my dad signed up, my sister signed up. My family, all my family members signed up for the military because it affected the whole family. Yep. I got out. I enjoyed it. I loved it. Then I'm here working, and they're working me like a dog. I'm back here in the U.S., but I'm still not home. But I did it to where I got enough money, and I quit. I'm quitting this, and I'm going to go invest and bet on myself. Like, this is fun.
Yeah.
Like, this is cool. Like, you did it, right?
Yep.
And it's a risk. But I want everybody to know the best investment you could ever make in your life is to invest in yourself, to bet on yourself. You have full control. You can't control what goes on in the world. If you have a goal, if you have a dream, just go for it. I saw all those people have it. For whatever reason, they didn't do it. I worked out of my house for like 6 months.
I was say, did you set up like in the garage?
Yeah, I set up in the garage.
Yeah.
I did that for about 6 months. I shared a shop with a gentleman here in town in Sanger. Where House of Pendragon is now.
Yeah.
That's where my shop was. Where the brewery is now. Somebody told me, actually the same gentleman who let me do that first Harley.
Yeah.
He said, hey, there's a place in Fresno where there's a bike shop and then there's a retail store and they sell a bunch of biker merchandise. Contacted the owner. $400 a month, bro, in rent.
Whoa. Wow.
I'll take it. 1,200 square feet, $400.
Yeah.
It wasn't the greatest shop, but it was mine. I was like, I did it. Like, I'm here. I got my own shop. I was thinking back to Iraq. Like, I freaking did it. I got my own shop. And then reality hit, bro.
Right.
And it was like, you had it. I know you had it. If you build it, they will come, right?
Yep.
But where's everybody at? Because, like, the bills are coming.
Yeah.
And rent's due. Now I gave up my steady paycheck. I feel bad. My wife would call, answer the phone. Julio's pinstriping. This is Julio. She's like, hey, honey, what are you doing? I was like, oh. She's like, what was that about?
Sweeping, dusting.
I was like, oh, I thought you were a customer. I was like, oh, I'm just trying to see if anybody would call. But you know what? I stand here today, all these years later, post-pandemic, because of what I did then. 2014, close up the shop, get in my truck, and I just go body shop to 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 body shop to
boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground. Just knocking on doors. And I would take whatever, some little piece of whatever that I pinstripe. Like, hey, I'm a pinstriper. If you guys ever need any work, here's my card. Give my little speech, right? Sure enough, every time I would do that, one shop would be like, whoa, you did what? Hold on, wait, don't leave. I didn't realize there was there was a huge gap. And like tattooing and pinstriping correlate because in the early days of tattooing, everything was real underground.
Yeah.
It was like
speakeasy.
Yeah. How do you figure it out?
We have a lot of parallels.
Yeah. And tattooing went through that phase.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of discrimination, a lot of racism. That's how a lot of that Chicano art stuff, Chicano tattooing started, because they were shunned. They were not accepted.
Outcasts.
You know, it wasn't legitimate. You know, remember, early 2000s, all these tattoo shows started coming out.
A lot of people were open to that or exposed to that kind of art.
And then every Tom, Dick, and Harry wanted to be a tattoo artist. From the guy that was doing it on the side, the guy that was legitimate, the guys that was like, what is this guy doing tattooing? Like, all those true craftsmen had boots on the ground that had already grinded through the ups and the downs of the tattoo industry. When all that kicked off and all that whole wave came in, all those dudes already had their surfboard, right?
Yeah.
And when that wave came in, they were ready. Now they're charging whatever they want. That's those Nico Hurtados, the Jack Rudies. I mean, these guys were just like,
yeah,
you know, the Freddie Negrettis of the world, the Tim Hendricks, right? Like some of them now have amazing shops. So them, you ask them, no one will ever say they've mastered the craft, but they've put in the work and they are masters. They're providing for their communities. Yeah. I saw the same thing happening in the custom car world, you know, where hey, what kind of brushes do you use? Figure it out. Hey, what kind of paint do you use? I don't know. Then I had to learn the hard way. It's like, oh, there's a small little clique of old school pinstripers and painters that, like, it's cutthroat. I'm looking around, then after I really start opening my eyes, and I'm like, wait, where's the Mexican pinstripers? There wasn't any because they had been pushed out.
It's funny you mentioned Tim Hendricks because he's one of the most handcrafted to the tools to his craft, not just by tattooing, by the machines he's built and the companies he's built and
the pins, I mean, everything. Yeah.
The tattoo pen, which I've used myself, the saltwater supply, tattoo supply, and all these guys, all the names that you've mentioned, their own shops have story and history, and they have not only an indent, it's like a bookmark in this industry. I never even thought about that, if how you would even share a trade secret. Just as a body shop could have their own clique, shops also have their own. Yeah. If you're not with us, you're against us or whatever.
And all those guys that I mentioned, I studied them.
Yeah.
I studied them. You know, I'd go to Ink and Iron.
Why isn't there a community? Out of your opinion, what is it?
I'll tell you. Yeah. Right now, the pinstriping, custom painting, custom culture industry, you know, that's all of it. Airbrush artist. Yeah. You know, pinstriper, letterhead, you like all that, right? It is right now where tattooing was right before it blew up. Okay. I was like, no, I'm going to stick to the paint. There's nobody doing it. If I stick with this long enough, when this thing kicks, I'm going to already have my surfboard. I'm already have it all waxed up. I'll be in the water. And by the time everybody else catches on, I'll already be there. Cool. And I'm going to, just like all those other guys, I'd go to hot rod shows, motorcycle shows. I'm the only one here. Every single lowrider has pinstriping on it. Like, your lowrider is not a lowrider until it's pinstriped or custom painted. At least here in the Central Valley. You know, it's different in SoCal. People would take their cars to whoever was available. Sure. And at that time, you know, you have the epitome of Chicano art, which is a lowrider. And you have guys who, that's not their background, but they're doing it. It's sad to say, and I hate to put it out there, but you know, a lot of these guys were getting all tweaked out. They're just getting tore up. People knew it, but they're like, yeah, but he does good work. I remember being places, you know, sitting there at shops, at people's body shops or private shops, doing, you know, 1, 2, 3 cars for them. And then, you know, they would tell me like, I go, okay, I'm done for the day. You know, here's your total. Here's your receipt. All the guys here in the club, we've been watching you. And you haven't drank one beer, you haven't smoked one joint, you haven't done a one line, like
discipline.
You just been working. Yeah. Well, I'm at work, like I'm working. Right, this is work. You know, they're like, don't you drink beer? I was like, well, yeah, my time.
Work hours.
If I don't do it, I don't get paid. And if I don't get paid, I can't feed my family. Yeah. I can't pay the bills. So it was like I had to take it serious. And they're like, we've had guys come here for 20 years and you're the first guy that gives us a receipt. They're like, you run it like a business. I was like, because it is a business. Right. I went to SEMA. I heard the same thing from Steve DeMann. Now he's the top painter for Chip Foose.
Yeah.
And I'm asking him, like, hey, man, not to say that I know everything about pinstriping. Can you teach me about the business? Like, how do you price stuff? How do you juggle the customers? Like you were saying, how do you get that flow going? And I was like, this is what I'm doing already. This is how my system. Hey, bro, you're running it like a business. And I'm like, well, yeah, it is a business. He's like, no, you don't understand. Like, this has never been run like a business. He's like, it's always been cash. It's like done in the garage, done in the back of this guy's truck. Like that's where it differs from tattooing, because tattooing you have to like do it in a shop and people got to come to you.
It started like that though too, remember?
Right,
it's crazy. But now,
like pinstriping, you could work out of the back of your truck. You could work out of the trunk of your car.
Yeah.
You can go to this guy's shop. You can go over there. You could jump around.
I remember seeing a body shop one time, and yeah, you're right. They would call a guy to just pull up, and he'd have a toolbox. And it was all his pinstriping stuff, but they would have all their stuff done in their garage.
Right.
And it was some guy that who knows who he was, where he's from,
He'd
whatever.
just show up,
do
his
just
thing.
show up. And I remember that.
They'd pay him, and he'd bounce.
Yeah. That they would just have him sit there, or he was working on a current project that was like the last bay, the car.
Yep.
And he would have his own toolbox, pull up in his truck or something, and then he's gone because that's not his hub.
That's not his shop. It would elevate from like, okay, he can be here a little more permanently. We're giving him a corner. But nothing was legit. Everything was just straight cash only. So I started seeing that. And I hit a point in 2016, 2017. Business was taking off. It was growing. I was trying to be organized. I needed more tools, more equipment, and I couldn't get it because the bank didn't want to give me any money because I wasn't a legitimate business. And so I started studying business. In 2018, I incorporated. So I started a corporation. It's called Positivo Inc. I want to do positive, creative things in the community. Fast forward to 2019, business is rocking. It's rolling, right? I'm getting big accounts. I'm doing presentations.
You're teaching classes?
I'm teaching classes, right? Pinstriping classes.
Dude, tell me about that. How did you...
Yeah, I went into our local paint store, Allard's.
Well, I saw your poster at Allard's, and I was like telling the people, I'm like, I know that guy.
They would offer all these different classes, right? Mm-hmm. Like painting classes, acrylic painting and watercolors. And so do you guys have a pinstriping class? And they were like, no. It's like, okay. And they're like, you want to teach it? Yeah, I guess I can. I mean, I don't know everything, but I could teach what I know and what I've learned. Yeah. And at that time I had already been doing it maybe about 10 years. They're like, yeah, well, how do you want to do it? What do you guys usually charge? Like $35 a student. I was like, oh, yeah, $35. It took me all this time to learn. Yeah. Can we do $50? They were like, yeah, we can do $50. Do you think people will pay? I was like, yeah, I think people will pay for it. So I did one class, 10 students.
Did you host one at your shop also?
I have, you know, and I've done, and I think at Allard's, I've probably taught about 2019. I had a student reach out from Australia, and they were going through an apprenticeship program through country-funded grant. If you're studying culinary arts, we'll fund you to go to Europe or to wherever it is that the masters are, learn the trade. But the catch is you got to bring it back to Australia. So this particular student, she submitted, she won. She was into custom painting. She was into body shop. She said, I want to learn custom painting, and the best custom painters in the world come from California. I found Danny D, who does all the lowriders. I came across your website, pictures of your portfolios on your site. I liked your work and I studied your work, and I come and apprentice at your shop. And she came for 2 weeks. After me, she went over to Danny D's shop. You're putting me at that level, like with Danny, like this is one of the greatest custom painters ever. This is who I idolize, and you're telling me you're gonna go for me and you're gonna go to him? One time I had a good friend, his name's Andres, was a Marine, and for his 2 weeks of leave from Japan, instead of going home, he's like, hey, can I come for a couple days and apprentice with you? Like, I want to take a pinstriping class with you. I was like, you're going to take your leave time instead of going with your family in Texas. You're going to come. He's like, yeah, but I really want to learn. I was like, yeah.
That's got to be an honor too, man.
Yeah, you know, and I love doing that. I'm giving back what nobody would give me. When I would ask these guys and they didn't want to tell me nothing, I mean, I'd have to go down south. I'd go to LA. Tom McQueenie from Customs Inc. He used to work at Coast Airbrush. He recently passed away, but he was a real cool guy, man, you know, and he showed me a lot. He was one of the people that was like, oh yeah, sure. Didn't like No hesitation. Like, yeah, I'll show you. But a lot of other guys were like, well, where are you from? Oh, you're from Central California, you're not from SoCal? I was like, no. Oh, yeah. Boom. And then they start telling me. But you know what I've learned and what I could tell everyone? For every 10 people you ask, 2 are going to tell you no. And 8 are going to tell you something. Some are going to be like, well, practice, kid. I know that. But some will tell you, hey, do this. Hey, do that. Hold the brush like this. Use your paint like that. I wanted to give back. Now, this last year, Arte Americas asked me to host a class at Arte Americas. For those of you that don't know, Arte Americas, the largest Chicano cultural center and Mexican-American gallery and museum in Central California for maybe 100, 150, 200 square miles.
They would take us on field trips there.
Yeah.
Just to learn from culture.
And they asked me, would you teach this class for free? Oh, free. And they were like, yeah, we're having these workshops. Yeah. Can you just teach just the basics of pinstriping? You know what? This is a big opportunity. The community of Fresno has given me a lot. Central California has given me a lot, allowed me to pursue my dreams and my goals. You want to know what that opportunity was? They would always have workshops. When I had my pinstriping workshop, guys and girls from all generations, all ages, from all kinds of different backgrounds, come from all around Central California. Wow. Some people drove an hour, 2 hours just to come.
How long was the class?
It was about maybe 3-4 hours.
I was to say, how are you supposed to cram that much information?
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
You can't really squeeze it all in.
Small little.
But, I try to teach people the basics. We filled up Arte Americas. They said they've never had anybody fill it up.
What's the capacity?
That big. I think we had like 50 or 60 students, maybe a little less.
And that's a lot at the scale, thinking about with the room and everything.
I was just like, okay, and I'm teaching the class. Yeah. And they're like, I don't know what we're going to do with you, but we're going to do more. That led to a grant workshop was being held at Arte Americas, and I took that class. They were giving out like $5,000 to keep folk art, lost arts alive. I don't know if this is really going to qualify, but when you break down custom culture art in a very intellectual, well-spoken way, it's different. We're the carriers of art that's been done in Mexico for thousands of years.
A lost art.
The current artesanos of Aztlan. The art that's been done by Aztecs and Mayans that's still being done today. You can go to Mexico right now, and there's parts of Mexico that it's all about carving, wood carving. Tabalateros, that's what my great-grandpa used to do. So he would do all the cintos de pita, the different holsters and the saddles. He would sew all that by hand for the mariachis and for the charros. That's what we're doing now, but instead of on horses, we're doing it on our mechanical horses, which are our motorcycles, our cars, our lowriders. All that colorful, vibrant, creative side of Mexican and culture in our foods, in our dress, in our music. It's being carried on in the lowrider and Chicano culture.
One thing that really stood out to me of the work that you've done is the coffin. Because you just said that even like in the indigenous, like back in the day too, they would do that on temples and burial grounds. And they would paint these on the side of them and everything. And, I bring up that story to a few people. He's done some amazing work. And the work that he made this look like a lowrider. The casket was just painted. It had the leafing. Bro, it looked like a car.
Something like a coffin, it's very complex.
Yeah.
And it's multi-layered in so many ways. There's the whole emotional factor that you got a coffin in your shop.
It's like tattooing.
Literally the hearse pulls up and they're unloading the coffin.
Yeah.
And then you're going to do this for someone.
Right.
This is for their mother. This is for their father. You got to do your best. You got to be all in. You're not only doing a disservice to yourself, but you're doing a disservice to that whole family if you half-ass that.
Yeah.
So you got to go all in. Then, on top of that, you got to meet their requests. I always try to exceed their expectations. So I want to do that in honor of their family member. Then there's that time crunch. They passed away this day. We're bringing you the casket this day. And do you think you could have it done in a couple of days or in a day? The funeral's in this day. And this is all like timed, planned, thousands of dollars. There could be family coming in from out of town. And if you're the guy that decided to party that night before or the day of, and you didn't get it done on time, I just don't want to be that guy.
Right.
So, you want to go all in for those people. You want, and I try to do that with every customer. Every job that I do, I try to do the best that I can and better than the last job. And then better than the last job. Focus on quality, that focus on excellence. I've seen it to where now I still want to get better. My stuff's starting to look like the guys that I looked up to.
Who were they?
You know,
I wanted to ask about your inspirations.
like Danny D was
Okay,
a big
like
one.
Danny D, yeah, yeah.
Chip Foos, trends, and cultures. Not just one custom lowrider painter.
Yeah.
You know, my grandma used to own La Morena here in town.
That's right.
An old tortilla factory, and they had a convenience store. And as a kid, you know, once a month, this man would show up in a truck and he'd bring stacks of magazines. Lowrider, and he'd bring Street Customs, and he'd bring a few others.
That was a place to get all your
Yeah, and it was just like looking at all that,
Yeah.
studying those. I used to stare at paint jobs like this and be like,
Now you could-
how do they do? Like, what's the breakdown?
You could decipher it. You
What's
could break
the start?
it down.
What's the middle?
Yeah.
What's the end? You know, what do you do in between?
Yeah.
You know, what are the tools? And now it's like I could break it down. I can do it. Back to what I was saying about Arte Americas and the
Yeah.
grants.
Yeah.
I never received that $5,000 grant. A good dear friend of mine, Hilario Lugo from Hanford, runs Lugo's Engraving, and he was telling me, "Hey, you know what, Julio? I've been hosting these classes at a venue, at a location. It's just I don't know, man. Like, I'm just not feeling it, bro. Like, I just don't feel comfortable there. Like, the first one was cool, but after that, it just, like, I don't know. It'd be okay if I can host my class at your shop." I never thought about that. Like, I never thought that my business could become a venue.
Yeah.
It could be a training center.
You
It
have
could
the
be a
space.
workshop. Yeah, bro, let's do it. You know, now the business is a retail store, merchandise.
That's what you mentioned, because
Yeah, now we sell like the painting supplies. We started getting into the supplies. People asking, "Hey, well, what do you spray on the cars before you paint them?"
So now you
I
have
have
this
this
stuff
special
available?
mix that I
Wow.
made that I learned from this old guy. Well, can you sell me a bottle? Yeah, I'll sell you a bottle. So I'm selling.
awesome.
I'm making my own mixes and selling my own products. Companies from Canada are like, "Hey, can you sell our product in your store?" I was like,
Wow.
"Well, yeah. I mean, we could try it."
That's awesome.
So now I'm selling the supplies, and then now it's turning into a training center and a workshop. So we just had one a couple weeks ago, and Hilario tells me, "You told me about that workshop, the grant writing workshop. I applied for it and I got it. I got the 5,000." He's on. "I got that because you told me." And I was like, "Oh, that's good, man. I'm happy for him. I'm glad he
Right.
did it, right?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "You know what? That lady's coming and she's gonna come check out my class. But when she's here, I want to introduce you to her and I want you to meet her." I got a chance to talk to her. So I'm showing her the shop and I'm showing her my work. I'm telling her my stories, telling her my background. Her mind is blown, you know. You know what? We've had some grant writing workshops. They've been happening since January. You have, we're only down to about 2.5 weeks before the deadline, but I think you would be perfect for this next grant. It's for $50,000. It's the cultural arts, uniting communities. She goes, "Honestly, it's whatever you want it to be." And it brought me back to Iraq. Like, do whatever you want. There's this art contest. Just do it.
It's a whole.
Right. And I thought, well, we can have one big event. And I went to the Celland Arena. I'm being supported by Arte Americas, Fresno Arts Council, ACTA, the City of Fresno Cultural Plan, Radio Bilingüe, my business, Positivo Inc. I want to have a Chicano cultural event here at the Celland Arena. What does it take to rent the Celland Arena? We could take all year planning this, and in one weekend, gone. All that money gone. And then I thought, you know what I'm going to do? Let's spread it out. So that's the plan. Right now I'm working on that. What I'm going to present, it's a 3-part plan. And she told me, she goes, "Julio, I want you to be the community leader. I want you to be, your cultural leader in your community for the Chicano community." And I'm just like, wow. It's like she's like putting the crown on my head, right?
The new Julio.
Yeah, and I was
Chavez.
like, what? And she's like, yeah,
That's wild.
what do you think? And I embraced it, and I took it as an opportunity to help the community, help the culture. What do we have? A series of workshops that are based on Chicano culture. So we have an engraving workshop, a pinstriping workshop, a custom painting workshop, hydraulics 101 to your lowrider workshop. We have all these airbrushing workshops. They would be funded through the grant. Students' fees, all the students would be free. So these are free classes for the community. All the food and anything that would take to make that particular one workshop run would be funded through the grant. That's part 1. Part 2, in between the workshops, we have community events, family nights, family movie nights. We're going to have a drive-in. Bring your hot rod, bring your lowrider, bring your custom. Yeah. We're going to have, tonight, we're going to play La Bamba. And we're going to play it on a projector. Cool. We're going to have bands. We're going to have DJs. Big old pachanga, right? You know, just come out, bring your families, bring your lawn chairs. The next time we have another one, we're going to play the Selena movie. Chicano culture, Chicano art. So art, music, and culture festivals, gatherings. Part 3, where now we have workshops. So we're training the community. We're keeping these art and these cultures alive. Yeah. And we're teaching folks. We're having community events, community gatherings, you know, uniting. That's what Mexicanos do. We unite. What are you guys doing? Are you guys having a party? No, just hanging out.
Every Sunday. This is a Sunday thing.
This is a Sunday thing, right? Because these things happen already, but there is no structure. There is no leadership. There is no direction. And there is no support, and there is no funding. Right. It's just happening, right? People are already doing it. Part 3, all those would link up like a chain link. They would work one with another to lead up to the final event, which would be the weekend after Easter in 2025 on Fulton. Because anybody that knows here in Central Valley, Easter Sunday is the unofficial start of cruising here in Fresno. Yeah. Right? That's been kind of the unofficial rule for maybe about 30, 40 years.
That's how everybody knows it.
Yeah. You know, I'm a family man, so I'm like, not that Sunday, but the weekend after, let's have a Chicano cultural arts, music, and culture festival on Fulton, celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the lift of the cruising van. Everybody that took those workshops, we're going to have an outdoor gallery showing. If they took the airbrushing class, they're going to be showing their art. If they took the engraving class, they're going to be showing what they did. You know, everybody's going to show off their stuff. You know, it doesn't matter if it's the whole car club, it's the solo rider, it's the one solo biker, or if it's the homeless guy down the street. Yeah. You want to eat? Everybody eats.
It just shows you what we're about, man.
Right. From 5 to 6 p.m., if you brought something to cruise it.
Nice.
And from 5 to 6, we're going to kind of have like a cruising parade. They're going to set them up. They're going to be the judges. And you're going to win a trophy from Arte America Choice, wow. Fresno Arts Council Choice. Like they see an Impala, they see a motorcycle, like whatever. They love the colors. They love the designs. They love the fact that the whole family's in the car. The car is beautiful, and it just represents everything that their organization is about. Right there on the spot, they give them the award. And it's just one big event. Rather than one huge event, that one big whale that eats all the money, let's spread it out.
Just talking to you, I'm curious. You already kind of hit a lot of things that I wanted to just, from what's going on right now in your life, what you have plans, what's the aspirations, the future goals. Now it comes to the conclusion to kind of like sum it all up, through what you've been through, from life, learning, all the things that lessons, what would you tell that person, whether it's aspiring pinstriper, because you mentioned invest in yourself.
Right.
That was key.
Right.
Now, if you were to step back and you were able to see where you're standing now to what you have planned, to what can you hand down to someone of words as far as what would be your thing? What would you want to say?
First and foremost, what I want to say is God's got you no matter what. Whatever that means to you, Catholic, Christian, whatever you want to call it, He's got you. And that's hard to believe sometimes. I doubted it for a long time. And everything that we go through in life tells you no. A lot of that self-doubt stems from, people telling you that you can't, maybe because they couldn't. I remember being a junior at Sanger High. It's career day, and you got to go talk to the career counselor. We're going to set you on the track for success. I want to be an artist. I walked in with that big old red balloon, right? And she says, that's kind of tough. Mind you, this was 96, 97. Yeah. And she's like, well, being an artist is tough. You come from a small town. You're going to have to move to LA, Southern California. You're going to have to move to San Francisco. Yeah. Art school's expensive. Do you think your parents are going to be able to afford that?
Yeah, that was the mindset.
Being a niñito Mexicano, no. Knowing that your family, not very long ago, worked in the field, picked, worked in the packing houses, and you're like, no. My balloon's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I said, well, no, not really. Well, but wait, you like drawing, right? I said, yeah. Okay. Well, how about drafting? You want to do drafting? I said, well, yeah, well, I guess. Well, you're drawing houses and you're drawing buildings. I said, okay, yeah, that's fine. I can do that. Off I went into my drafting career and spent the next 4 years in high school and in junior college studying drafting and design. And I didn't like it because I listened to this lady. So listen to yourself. In order for the rainbow to come out, there's got to be thunder and rain.
There's got to be storms.
But after that, if you can get through all that, rain stops, the rainbow comes out, the sunshine comes out, and man, the air is clean, it's clear.
It's a reward.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that is how life works.
Absolutely.
You put in the work, you put in the time, you will get rewarded. So anybody that has a dream, that has a goal, it doesn't matter what it is. If you're going to go for it all the way. As a Mexicano, you don't start working at 18, especially as a young man. As you start working at like 8.
Yeah, like 12, 10.
You may not be getting paid. Yeah. You may not know you clocked in, but you clocked in.
You're working.
Yeah, you're working. It doesn't matter if you're raking leaves, whatever, but you're working.
You're working. Yeah.
Right? We'll just say just to pick a number, we'll say age 20. If you really sit down and do the math, from age 20, retirement age 65, if you're going to work 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, you're talking 40 plus years. If you're going to put in 40 plus years of your life, why don't you do what you love? Why not get paid to do what you love to do? Like you're telling me that I can get paid, I can provide for myself, for my family, and for future generations of my family, doing what I love to do? Yes.
Yeah.
Omar right here is proof of that. I am proof of that. But it takes guts.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's a wrestle with yourself. It's a wrestle against those haters.
Con la voluntad de Dios.
Yeah,
like they say.
yeah. Porque el diablo's out there, man. He's out there, and he will try to throw you off your game. He will try to throw you off. That devil will tell you everything, but I'm here to tell you it's all a lie. Yeah. It's not true. And sometimes that is in your own head. And it's not true, and it's tough, and you just have to believe, and you have to go all in, because it is worth it. Now, anybody aspiring to be a pinstriper, custom painter, do it, because the pinstriping, custom painting, we'll just put it in one box. That custom art, right? Custom art is pinstriping, lettering, candy paint, leafing, airbrushing. I don't know if this will work for everybody. This is just what worked for me. Pick one, learn it, do it over and over and over. Give it like 2 years of only that. Don't like pinstripe and then airbrush and then, paint and then this and then that. Like give airbrushing 2 years, 3 years, but like solid good 2-3 years. Like you're on it. Yeah. Daily, weekly, right? Once you got it down to where you can't do anything and everything, but you got it. Like you know how to handle that airbrush. Pivot to pinstriping, and then put them together. Yeah. Right. And then now learn pinstriping, and put that together. And all these crafts take years to learn. Right. That's why there's so few people that do them, because it takes years to learn them. Yeah. It takes years of just practicing and making mistakes and sacrificing. And so learn that one, and then and use them as building blocks and stack them. Yeah. Okay, take the airbrushing, and then I did pinstriping, and then from pinstriping I learned leafing, and then from leafing I learned airbrushing. And when people tell me, can you do this? Say yes. Always say yes. You'll figure it out. Yeah. When the customer leaves, and but you bet on yourself and say, yeah, I got this. Yeah. Have you ever done it before? No. But you sure you can do it? Yes, I can. Yeah. That assurance, that confidence in yourself, even though up here is telling you no, when you could speak it, it'll happen. Absolutely. And so that stack them all up, and then when you got them all stacked up, do them, and just keep that rotation going. Yeah. Start doing all those arts. But I will also say I am humble enough to know there is artists that are just masters at their craft. Mm-hmm. And if you just want to stick to one craft, stick to it, but be the best there is at it.
Yeah.
You know, there's certain things that if it's a specific portrait, I hand it off to my buddy Alberto Herrera from Visalia Quality Art. This guy's a master, bro. And I just say, hey, Alberto, knock it out, bro.
Wow.
And I'd rather share the pie and hand it off because, yeah, I'm not eating the whole pie for myself, but guess what? That customer is going to get a quality job. It's going to get the best out of me. They're going to get the best out of him. And when it's done, this is one thing you have to understand. When it's done and it leaves your shop, you cannot be there standing next to that motorcycle, that lowrider, and speak for your work.
Right.
Your work has to speak for itself.
Absolutely.
So, you know, whether it's a good customer, a bad customer, if you did a great job and you gave it 100, it will show. And people will see it.
Yeah.
You know, even if the customer, the owner of that vehicle is not standing there, sign your work because people will look for that signature. Who did this car?
Yeah.
They're at the car show. Who did this? Man, Omar did this. Mm-hmm. Man, you know, every time, all the cars in the car show that I see, that I love, all have this Omar guy on the back. I want to know who this Omar guy is. Mm-hmm. And so stack up all those talents.
Yeah. No, man, I respect and appreciate, I respect your art. I respect everything you do. And I mean, all these, it's like tried and true, the recipes of Julio, you know, and it's like, it's just incredible, man. I just told you to, hey, write me a chapter of Julio, and you just pulled out the things of why is it that you do what you do, where you stand in this position, what you went through, mm-hmm. you know, and then to have, well, actually, this is the beginning. What you did with the military life, putting things on pause, putting things on hold, and then to revisit, to push. If you had not have done that, imagine what wouldn't have happened, I should say.
Right.
It's pretty bizarre. Like you said, you put your faith, your trust, everything into one of those things that, man, if you needed to hear that, I feel like a lot of people.
And it's scary.
You know, it is. It's risk takers.
Let me tell you the truth.
Yeah.
The facts are, it's scary.
Yeah.
It's lonely.
Yeah.
Sometimes the people who are closest to you will turn their back on you.
Yeah.
Sometimes the people you know that, oh, they got me, don't. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. That's okay. Because God's got you.
It's a road of solitude, but yeah, exactly.
And the people that are meant to be in your life are going to be there. No matter what.
Yeah.
And the people that aren't won't.
Yeah.
And that's tough because, you know, as a good person, you want everybody to come along for the ride.
Right.
You want everybody to do good. But that's not how it works.
Right.
You know, and that's not you. That's just them. Yeah. And, you know, dream big, work hard.
Yeah.
You know, work smart.
Yeah.
Because I've worked very hard. And man, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Your body will tell you.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna take a break. I'm gonna make you take a break.
Right.
You know, and it's very easy to get wrapped up into drugs and alcohol mm-hmm. because you have so much freedom, because there is no one telling you you can't or you shouldn't, because you have total freedom, but you have to learn to keep that under control. Yeah. Because if you don't, you can lie to yourself all you want, but it will control you. It will take over you. So will greed.
Right. So
will, arrogance. So you have to keep all that stuff on check.
Absolutely.
And it's like how, right? How do I do that? As simple and as far-fetched as it sounds, read the Bible. It's in there in Proverbs. Proverbs is a life 101 book. Mm-hmm. It'll tell you about watch out for snakes. People will stab you in the back. Watch out for yourself. Watch out you know, for these situations in life. In order to succeed, you gotta go through all those hurdles. But if you can get through all that, let me tell you,
solid.
Yeah.
Where could people find you for, let's say they want to come by, get supplies, painting, they want to check out your work? I'll obviously showcase some of your work. If you're watching the vlog version of the podcast, you'll be able to see a lot of his portfolio per se. But where can they find you?
Julio's Custom Studio.
Okay.
You know, real simple. Google.
Yeah.
Julio's Custom Studio. Custom with a K. JuliosCustomStudio.com.
Okay.
Instagram.
Yeah.
I don't really have Facebook. It's hard to juggle all of it, man.
Yeah, I know.
TikTok.
I know.
Instagram,
yeah, I know.
Try
to keep it.
But I have an Instagram.
Okay.
But the best thing is just come by the shop, you know.
For sure.
I'm located at 5494 East Lamona Avenue, Suite 102 in Fresno, California. Fresno Califas. And, you know, you can give me a call. You know, if anybody wants an estimate on a job or has any questions. I mean, if you got questions about, you know, art, if you got questions about the tools, if you got questions, you know, about something you're working on, project, give me a call, 559-797-5484.
There it is.
Yeah, I'm there Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and they're at the shop. So we're always putting in work. Everybody's always welcome to come by the shop.
There you go.
Thank you.
And no, thank you, man. This has been a great sit down one-on-one. I learned so much. Even just sitting here, I'm just like, it's funny comparing the two, like the crafts and our realms, our environments, our, you know, our cultures is, you know, maybe the same, but the way we're working and sitting with another artist is just, it's one of my favorite things ever, because it's like you get to hear this perspective and outside looking in point of view and different. It's amazing, man.
Well, we said it, you and I said it off camera and off mic, but I want to say it now on mic and on camera. You know, I'm very proud of you for what you're doing.
Appreciate it,
you know,
man.
everything that you've done, and because I see you not only in your creative life, in your creative career, how you've gone out in the country, you've gone all across the country, you've placed a lot of awards. That doesn't happen just because you showed up to the convention.
Right.
That happens because you showed up and you did your best.
Yeah.
You know, you're well respected in the tattoo industry, and that doesn't come easy. You know, there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of tattoo artists. So to be respected amongst the masters, the greats, you know, that didn't come easy.
Yeah.
That came from, you know, you dedicating yourself to your craft. And, you know, I commend you for that.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
And I see you around town, you know.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, me and Omar grew up here in Sanger.
Yeah. Natives. Local natives, like you said.
Sanger bangers, you know.
That's right.
And Sanger's a small town. So, you know, we see each other not often, not as much as we'd like to. We don't hang out as much as we'd like to because we're so focused on our families and on our businesses. But I do see you know, spending a lot of time with your family. You're a family man.
Absolutely.
And that's awesome. That's good. Yeah. You know, a lot of people, it's hard, you know, because you want to be out kicking it.
Right.
Chilling.
It's hard, man.
But
think about the days when you're able to hang out with people.
You know what? It's all worth it. So
I wouldn't.
I'm proud of you for being a good father.
Appreciate it.
You know, and I see you doing stuff for yourself spiritually, you know, physically. You're doing your martial arts, so that's awesome. I'm happy to see that.
Doing it again, just trying to set that example, man. Especially when you're that, you gotta leave that legacy and what it is we leave behind and what we're gonna instill and pass down to the children is something that.
And I'm really glad and happy that you're doing this because, like what you're doing here, this is not, you know, you could be just try to cram in as many customers as you can right now.
Yeah.
You know, you could be sitting here and be like, I got to make that money. I got to make that money. I'm about that money. But you're not.
Wherever it is you listen to your podcast, you switch over to the video side of it, the vlog of the podcast, you'll be able to see, because that reflects on, you know, your home will reflect who you are. Your wife will reflect who you hear these different sayings where where it is people walk into the shop and I tell people, I'm like, you know, you come in here and you don't know if you're going to see a traditional tattoo shop where there's flash racks left and right, where there's the traditional flash, like I want number 32 or 54. You're coming in here and this is my mind.
Right.
You're walking into my mind in a sense, because this is the things that I like,
Right.
not what, if it strikes you or not. You know, I've had all walks of life in here, ages, groups. Oh, you know, who's that? Oh, this is Poseidon. This is Beethoven. This is, and they didn't have no idea what it was. Like Atlas, I have this is a picture of Atlas right here. And these are the things that I like. Dude, this is my space that I'm opening up for everybody to come in so that I can create and stay inspired and inspire others. Like you've inspired all of us today with all the things that, you know, and that's exactly,
I hope so. Yeah.
this is it. What I knew this is what we're going to get out of this episode.
Thank you.